see here. Get all my views up here. Chat. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. As always, we'll give everyone a few minutes to join. And if you want, you can go ahead and ask your question in the chat, ask it in the Q&A. We should probably just say don't use Q&A going forward, I think. What do you think, Sabrina? So we can stop talking about it. We'll just say ask your question in the chat. Or is it easier for you if it's in Q&A?
Some people do it in Q&A.
But then we have to paste it in the chat after, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you can either use the raise hand action. You can post your question in the chat, and we'll answer. Do we have any pre-submitted questions today, Sabrina?
Nope, we do not.
Okay. Quiet day so far. Please let us know if you have any questions. Oh, here we go. All right, from Scott, can you talk a little bit about case entity actions? I know how to define them, but can you talk about how they get exposed in different areas in a page or a report, for example? Just trying to understand the options. Sure, happy to. So let's go ahead and get ourselves a little workspace here. And I am in V7, just as a note for everyone. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and create a quick case here for us to have. Case, this will be called college application. I'll give it 2 fields here and create. All right, so the way to think about actions on our folders, the way to think about actions is when you create an entity that has like a case that is database persistent, it gets this configuration folder. And in this configuration folder, if we move away from the case editor just to the list here, the default way to add actions to your data type is under user actions here. And you can create a single or a group user action. And that is a flow that will run and inherits the case entity's data automatically. Either the single one you've clicked on, or if you're multi-selecting a list of it'll be the selected list of things you're clicking on. Excuse me. And these actions follow the entity wherever it goes. So to your question, which is on a page or a report, with the correct data source set for a report, you get these actions. So these actions go anywhere the entity goes. And so, for example, if I can come up here, let's add a folder called, all cases or something. I'll say all college applications. And in here, I should be able to add case college application. And this will be called, I'll call this Will Pedersen. Let's assume that I'm this person submitting the college application here. And it looks like we have 2 Scotts in. Let's make sure we've got the right one unmuted or able to speak, Sabrina, in case he wants to ask a question. So if I look, I have right now I have a decisions folder called all college applications, and inside of it is one item, one entity. This is our default folder view. So this report has no understanding of of the things it's reporting on. It's like a very abstract. It's not a custom report, right? It's our default folder entities report. If I right click, I have the default actions, which is change state, and for some reason it's create root folder. So I don't think that should be showing by default. And I can extend that list by going to the configuration folder for my college application case. I like the list view better, but I can do it from the case editor. And I can add or state agnostic actions. So these are actions, these are right click context menu actions that will follow this case anywhere. And we'll contrast that with state-based actions here in just a minute. So I can create a user action, and this will be called, maybe it's like review, or let's say read only, right? This is like read only view. And in this, I could quickly throw together a form, and I could show you a default form. This will be read only application view. And I'm just going to put like 2 labels, which will be str1 value colon, well, sort of. And this will be str2 value colon. And then I'll put some dynamic labels here. And then on these labels, I'll set them to get their data, to get the actual value from the flow. So I'll select text from data name, and this will be called str1 value. And I'll do the same thing for this other label here. So I'm instead of having static labels, I'm going to have dynamic labels that I can pass data from the flow into. And I'll drag a button over so the user can complete this form. I'll save this. Now I'll come back into my flow with my new values, and I can edit input mappings. Now you'll notice by default in this flow, I have a college application listed here as extension data. This is a special type of flow. It knows it only gets called from an action context menu. That means it can infer, or it can automatically give you the input data. I'm not defining or setting that college application anywhere as an input, like in the way I would handle a normal linked flow, or a subflow, excuse me. So I'll go ahead and click OK here, connect this. And if I go back and I look at my case into all college applications folder and right click, I'll have read only view, which I can run, and I can see the values here. And do I have the edit action? I could turn edit action on. Let's see here. Well, actually, I can do it this way, can't I? Click in here. Will that save? I bet that doesn't save, does it? Let's see here. Let me edit my case. And let me find my show edit action. Yeah, show edit, show delete. Cases give us some free CRUD actions for free. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that. Go back to all college applications. I can then edit it. Because this is one of our entities, you get a free property grid based edit. And then I will say, I'll put some values in here for string 1 and string 2. If I come back out here and right click and read only view, it should show me Will Pedersen. So I've created this simple state agnostic. It doesn't care about the state of the case action. Now, if I go and I create a report of this, so I'll come and I'll come back to Lunch and Learn case entity folder, and I'm going to create a default report here. This will be all college applications. Now in this, if I click add under data sources and I look at user defined types, I'll see a case category. And if I expand case, I'll see college application. Now college application is going to give me a bunch of fields for free because it's a folder and a case together. I see entity name, which is my folder name, which we can see from that generic report. I'll put state in there. I don't know if we give it a default state. We do, which is started. And I can find string 1 and string 2. And then I can save this and run this report. So let me save it. And then I'll click run report. And if I run this and right click, you'll see it has the same actions because the actions are tied to the entity, not the report or the page or the form. These actions show up wherever the entity shows up. And so I show or hide these actions based on right clicks here. It's all about the context menu of the entity. And so that again is a state sort of, it doesn't matter what state it's in, but we also have the ability to show actions in specific states only. So right now there's two states. We're in the college application configuration folder in the case editor tab here. And this gives us these things called expected states. Now one of the things about cases, though you will notice you get this for other data types that are folders like flow execution extensions and folder extensions, you get the same case editor view. In fact, they're all very similar, almost exactly the same. So the same patterns can be used across them. It's more about how to think about them. But we get these things called expected states. I can add another expected state here. And it's college application, so I'll say this is in review. Now in review, it makes more sense between started and completed. So I can move this left. Oh, look at that. No parameters. Well, let's, can someone try to recreate that on a current version of 7 for me? Anyone on the call can take ownership on my end for that? You see what I just did?
I can test that real quick.
Yeah, thank you. Just make sure, just see if you can recreate that. I just added a expected state and then moved it left inside the config folder for a case. Jared.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man. So what I did is I added this thing called an expected state. If I go and I look at my case folder, I have a default action called change state here. Now this gets a list of all of the states it can move through. And this is a default way to move this thing through states, but this is not going to be what you're going to use. You're going to let the workflow itself move it through states. And you'll do that using like set entity state or set state steps. And you'll have flows that run in different states. So if I right click here, you'll see read only view, but let's add a case specific, or excuse me, I keep saying case, a state specific action. So under in review, can I actually get this to move left or not? Yeah, it's not going to do that. That's unfortunate. Looks like I hit it. So let's start with completed. Actually, it doesn't matter if it's in this order. I'll just do this here. I'm gonna add an activity under in review and a user action. And this will be called send for approval. Now I'm not actually going to build a flow here. I'm just going to connect the start step to the end step and save this. And then if I come back to the all college applications and I right click, I only have read only view. If I change the state of this thing to in review and I right click again, I'll have send for approval. So there's two things going on here. One is if I look at my configuration folder and I look in list, I have things called action visibility rules, and I can write really complicated business logic to hide and show particular actions. And historically, before we had these expected states in earlier versions of our product, to hide send for approval flow, we would have written an action visibility rule. What this case editor and these expected states allow us to do is more easily constrain what actions show up based on the current state of the case. So this view in the case itself is very aware of what state it's in, and then it will show the actions in particular states. So one of the things here is if we look at started, which we can see is our default state. It's the first state in our flow because we haven't edited, we haven't set a different default state. Under activity, you'll notice another thing called trigger flow. And this is going to be start initial review. And this flow, unlike the user action flow we just saw, this flow runs automatically. And so when the flow moves into this state, maybe we want to send in an email. I'm just going to use a pop-up in its place. And this flow will run, and we can use set state steps. So I can set entity state, excuse me, set entity state. I'm going to show a pop-up and I'm going to set its state to something else. So the show pop-up here is going to be, I'll say subject is new application received. And my message, I'll do a text merge and I'll just put some information in. It'll be a new applicant details. And I will hit enter. Okay. So it's like a first name, last name. And again, I have my college application under the data name, under the variable name of extension data. And because I'm using string 1 as first name and string 2 as last name in my example, I'll just go ahead and do this. I'll save this, and then I'm going to put it into a new state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the folder ID, which is the ID of my case, the primary key of my case, and I'm going to set it to a new state. I'm going to set this to in review. I'm going to move it automatically to an in review state. So again, this is you can see the difference in the icons here. This person icon is a user action. You can see because I added it without a state specific filter or underneath an expected state, it shows under all. But I can remove these things. I can go and I can edit it. I can hide it from the read only view. Is it under set classification info? Maybe I don't know how to do that off the top of my head. But so there's a person icon for the user action, and then there's this icon for a trigger flow. So when a case is created, it moves into the started state. And when it hits the started state, it's going to run this flow. I should see a pop-up here, and then it's going to move it to the in review flow, in review state. And again, in review would be number 2, but we're hitting some kind of issue on the build of 7 that I'm on, that Jared is following up on us for. So let's do this.
I just tested that out. It doesn't occur on the most recent version of 7.
Okay, wonderful, great. So I'm going to add another case, college application. I'll just call this case 2, and this will be Jared R-Man. Now you see here's my pop-up where a new application is received, new applicant details, first name Jared, last name R-Man. And now this state is in review. And if I come back out and I right click, it's going to show me send for approval. So I've both have a custom action and triggering, and I have a trigger flow that runs on the movement between states. And these two things together is what is really the power in cases. You have lots of small flows. Those flows live inside of your configuration folder, either under expected states or if they apply to all states, just as general user actions. And you have trigger flows that move between. But I could, for example, if I can then, let's say, send for approval, we could edit our flow here. And to make this, to just sort of, I think, circle back and make this completely, let's assume I'm going to put another entity, set entity state step here. And what I'm going to do is, again, entity ID will be the folder ID, which is our default input to the flow. And then this, I'm going to set it to completed. Let's just assume this has gone through a review process. And we can actually move this one case, a new case, through the entire life cycle. I'll come back to college applications, add entity user define, add case, college application. So we call it app 3 or something. And this will be, I'll say Brian Thomas. I'll click OK. So this is in review. Now we can see, because the current label here, that it's in review. And if I come back and right click on app 3, I've got send for approval. I can send this for approval. It has now moved itself into, let's go click in, into the completed state. One of the things you'll notice is our default, the default report doesn't give you that much information about the case, because it doesn't, it's only pulling header information. And that's where you would go back to our report here, all college applications, and run. And now you can see, we see our app 3 is in state completed. And then we could edit this report and group it and provide and create charts and all sorts of other elements. So I could group on state. So here's state, and I can group on this, group by state. And then I could come add like a pie chart, which would be all applications by state. And there's my pie chart. And then I can build a dashboard. That pie chart rendering looks a little odd to me. And I could build a dashboard with this report and these charts and provide that really detailed view that you would make available to your users. You wouldn't often leave the default folder view, which you see here, for your users to use. You would build a page with charts and reports and things that is more helpful for them. Scott, any feedback, anything you'd like me to touch on here?
No, that was a really good review. I guess the only other thought that I'm having is, so as an end user, the last thing you said, where this isn't the view you're going to give them, and I would agree with that. In a lot of cases, our users aren't even going to have the designer view, obviously.
Sure.
And so essentially, I guess the question is, whatever we want to provide to them to use in ways to interact with the case. Is there a way, or what's the best way or a recommended way to, let's say that we have a case that is with a frontline person and they move it to a supervisor. And so we want to have the supervisor then basically have the ability to interact with it, but the end user isn't going to see it until maybe the supervisor does whatever they need to and then kick it back to them for follow-up or whatever.
Yeah, so we can expand this a bit. So one of the things we don't have yet in this example are assignments. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into college application, and I am going to edit my start initial review flow here, or in review. I'm going to set this to, how do I want to do this? In review. So I'm going to add another trigger flow. And when it moves into in review, this will be assigned to default queue or something like that, right? And in here, I'm going to use the same form I built before, but I'm going to select that form, the one I just created, which maybe not, it's probably not what we'd actually do, but the important piece here is I'm going to set this to be an assigned form. I'm going to assign this to, I know that I'm a member of administrators. Actually, I'll just assign this to my user directly. Okay, admin@decisions.com to show this. And the assignment name will be, review. Let me do a text merge here. And it will be review application 4. And I'll put in, str1 space str2 for, Jared R-Man. And the action name will be just review. This is the assignment name. This is the action context name to actually open the assignment here. And I'll do input mappings again, and I'll pass in my str1 and 2 values. And then click OK. Now it didn't take my assignment action names. Let's try it again. So this is review. All right. So this is actually going to create an assignment for me. So if I add a new case here, back to college applications, add case college application. This will be, I'll just name this Sabrina L. I don't actually know how to spell her last name off the top of my head. So she's going to be mad at me. I know she's saying, wow. Here, I can see it in Slack. So there you go. I'm sorry, Sabrina. I'm going to run this. Now, this is assigned a form to me. So, which is why I'm getting this pop-up here. And in this, let's see, here's in this case folder. Actually, I need to make one change to get this to work. My assignment, which is in the assigned to default queue, doesn't save the folder. This is unfortunate. Does anyone know with cases if we're not inheriting the folder context automatically? That's unfortunate. I'm going to make a quick change to make sure this assignment gets added into the folder we're on right now, which is our case folder. So I'm going to select it from flow, and the assignment folder ID will be select from flow folder ID. And I'm going to run a new case to create this here. Okay, add all college applications, and I'm going to add case college application. I'm running out of names here. This will be Brendan N. His name is too long for me to actually spell, so he'll be Brendan N. And I'll add this. I'm gonna get a new assignment, but now you'll notice in the view here of the case, you can see the assignment showing up. It's assigned to admin@decisions.com, and we're in the in review state. So the things you need to start thinking about is creating queues of work for people. So I'm going to add another folder here. underneath case entities, a regular folder called my queue. And what I'm going to do is come back up to my default folder here. I'm going to click create report. I'm going to add a page, just a default page called default queue page or something dumb like that. And then here, what I'm going to do is drag over a report viewer, and I'll span this across. And then I'm going to create a new report here. So pick or create report. I'm going to create a new report. This will be called all current user tasks. Again, I'm going to set this up in the same way I did before, where I go to data sources, user defined, case entity, select college application, select the same kind of fields. Now I could have copied my other report. Let's say state, SCR1, SCR2, but under filters, I'm going to add, and under in folders, excuse me, under folder filters, that's not confusing. I'm going to find a folder. I'm going to filter here that says folders have current assignments assigned to me. And if I run this, it'll filter it down to 1. So I'm going to save this report, back out, save this page. And then I'm going to put that page on the my queue folder. So I right click it, manage, page dashboard, add page dashboard. And we do send the recordings for all these, so we can follow back along with this. I know I moved pretty quick, and I'll just say my queue as so the page name is actually going to be my tab name. I'll pick page, which is the default queue page, and I'll save this. So my queue now shows me a custom page with a custom report, and it's only going to show me the things that are assigned to me. So probably what I need to do is come back to college application, and in review, I'm going to add another user action called escalate to manager or something, escalate to supervisor. And I'll create this. And this is going to, actually, let me not do it this way. Sorry, I'm going to delete this. Let me back. I want to do this slightly differently. I'm going to add a state called in manager review or something, right? And what I'm going to do is in send for assign to default queue, I'm going to edit this flow. And in here, let's edit I'm going to have a approve button, maybe. I'm going to change this name to approve. And then I'm going to add a button here. And this will be called send to, manager queue or something. It's a terribly long button name. So I'll put this here oddly. That'll give me a new outcome path in my flow. So approve will just go to the end. Actually, approve should do set entity state and set it to completed. I guess since if anyone has any other questions, please dump them in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm just going to bang on this question from Scott for a while here. So again, set entity state takes the folder ID in, and this will move it to completed. But send a manager queue, we'll go ahead and we're going to use another set entity state step here and end. And this one is going to do the same thing, which is folder ID, but this will be, I can't remember the actual name I gave that queue. So let's duplicate our tab here. And it is an in manager review. So new state is in manager review. Go ahead and save and close this. Now I need to launch a new one here. So let me add a new one, which is add case college application. And this will be called Ryan S. We'll put Ryan S. and click OK. I get a new assignment. I can go down to my queue. I see Brendan and Ryan are in my queue. The flow is actually assigning these things to me automatically. I'm not controlling this, right? Like I'm a college application processor or claims management processor, right? And so under Ryan S, I can use read-only view just to see some information about it. But I'm going to say send for approval, which is not what I wanted to do. I'm going to manually move that back to the Let me move back to started state. Sorry, just a second. I'm going to I'm going to use the review action. It's going to show me my form. And then I'm going to send to manager queue. And this is going to send to manager queue. And then it's going to remove itself. Sorry, what did I miss? Some send in manager queue.
I think you need to actually, did you change the assignment to a different account?
Well, the assignment should be completed now. That assignment is completed. Maybe I picked the wrong filter on that report. 1 second. All current user tasks. Folders have current assignments assigned to me. And if I go back in here and look at Ryan S, I see a current assignment. Oh, you know what? I bet I have 2 assignments here. Let's try this. Let me add a new one. I think I might have created double assignments for myself with that change state, I think is what happened. So this will be called Derek H. All right. So Derek H shows up. So it's added to my queue. There's Derek H. I can right click and review this. If something's off with it, I'm not going to approve it. I'm going to send it to manager queue. Now it's going to be gone from my queue. And the reason it's gone is because if I were to look in Derek H, the assignment which I had, which was review application, has been completed. I can view its completion details, right? By seeing the form and seeing what the outcome path was and who completed it. But now it's actually moved into another state. Now we would do the same thing that we did before, which is in manager review, we would add an assign form that would trigger an assignment for the management team, whoever that appropriately identified manager or group was. And now they would have it show up in their queue, right? So if I logged in and it was assigned to someone else, they would see it here. And in that way, the report and page is the view, and the states and actions allow you to move it between the view and move it between those states. And then the filters on the report allow it to show or not show. And that's how you can have these dashboards with very specific types of tasks showing up. And so these things, let's assume that we had 4 different people were responsible, 4 different groups of users were responsible for each of these states. Well, we can have actions to move them between the states, and flows like assigned a default queue, which control the actual assignment and completion of those. So based on the action taken, we move it to one state or the other, or any of these 4 options, whatever it might be. And then the dashboard is showing only is showing you a data-rich view based on the custom fields added to the data type. And then that filter we showed current user has current assignments assigned to me, is controlling and making sure that it only shows you the tasks assigned to you, which in this example are sort of state-based, but don't have to be. Like it could be, we could have more complicated logic, so that I could see, it could be based on, if this wasn't college application, but sort of claims of some sort, certain dollar amount claims go to certain users. And one of the things we've been showing here is me actually manually adding these, but there's a flow that we would run to create a new application. And so it could determine dynamically what group or what user gets assigned to that. But in each user would have a unique queue here based on like a claim dollar value or region or type or something of that nature. And so we can really handle all that complexity there. Questions about that?
No, that's perfect. That's a really good overview. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. And this will all be in the YouTube video that we'll post later today for you. So if you want to re-review that, please feel free. Okay, that took a while. Lots of stuff to set up there and lots of things to talk through. Anyone else on the call have questions about the case example that we just walked through? If you do, please use a raise hand feature. If not, what other questions might we have today? Anyone got anything else today? If not, I think we'll go ahead and call it an afternoon. Give everyone a lunch back. At least give me my lunch back, whichever. Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate the time today. We'll post this video on YouTube as always. And that was a nice example of walking through some detailed case stuff. So Scott, thanks for the question, and everyone have a wonderful afternoon.